Hey, this is the second in our series on what's going on with the election, and doing this really, I think, very good compare and contrast on the key policy areas between President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. So my mantra for the election remains: we could see the largest swings in policy of our lifetimes. I'm not kidding. Now prepare now for the changes or risk losing out. So in this video, we're going to discuss the areas with the largest potential swing, and that's energy and the environment. A Biden victory would supercharge action on climate change in the United States, very much opposed to what the president's doing. And this would also supercharge interest in things like ESG investing, and would likely signal the end of the great fracking boom that generated tremendous economic growth and jobs in the energy industry. So given the COVID-19 outbreak and the recent protests over the killing of George Floyd, it's not surprising that headlines about energy and the environment have been almost non-existent. Yet these topics are critical for the economy and people's well-being. And with the price of crude oil recovering from the incredible lows, minus $40 a barrel, the interest in these topics is going to recover in a really quick manner. Okay, here are the three big key takeaways. Number one, Biden and Trump have radically different platforms and policies when it comes to handling energy and the environment. They're approaching the issue from two different sides of a regulatory coin. Now, number two, right? Both Trump and Biden are attempting to frame their policies in the broader context of the economy. And they believe that energy and environmental policy can help, that would be Biden, or hinder, that would be Trump, economic growth. Okay, number three, Biden's main approach is towards renewables and renewable energy and increased regulations. On the other hand, President Trump's policies and ongoing proposals are really targeted at domestic fossil fuel energy production and reducing regulations. Now, you can get a lot more in-depth with this topic at my website, andrewbusch.com/research. Okay, here's how their policies impact the economy and the country. While the short-term economic impacts of the Trump administration's energy policies and regulatory reform may be positive, the long-term and more complex economic environmental consequences could be quite negative. This is because they do not address the fossil fuel impact on climate change and health. Now, Biden's policies have a more stable, longer-term impact, but may not show a significant economic impact in the short run. And as a matter of fact, it may be short-run negative. This is because the policies are already in line with a lot of the market forces towards renewables and are very expensive. The biggest Biden energy and environment question is the cost, or how to pay for all of his proposals. Now, COVID-19 has dramatically impacted U.S. economic policy, including environment and energy policy. Trump released his newest executive order in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this executive order allowed major infrastructure projects and energy projects to move forward without rigorous environmental review. Now, this alleviates the regulatory pressure on projects that may be necessary to get the economy in the U.S. back up and running, but at the potential cost of environmental damage. Yet, in a crisis, it's pretty typical for the U.S. government to ease regulatory rules to aid a smoother functioning of key industries and to provide relief to industry and commerce, just to make sure we get enough gas and so on. As an example, there's many of the CDC and HHS rules were eased to allow medical supplies to be moved throughout the country, right? In addition, medical research has been streamlined to allow for faster reviews and approvals. That's really critical at this time. Now, the question is whether the removal of environmental regulation during this period, longer term, will have really negative impacts outweighing the short-term benefits. Now, Trump's previous policy goals was to keep domestic energy prices low to assist businesses and consumers. Now, this did occur, but mainly due to the COVID-19 economic shutdown and other forces that were already at work. Now, this makes it difficult to assess how successful Trump's domestic energy policies have been to date, or if they would be necessary in the future to maintain low domestic energy prices. Now, like many U.S. businesses, energy production companies were also severely impacted by the shutdown and received necessary government support as a result. A functioning domestic energy market is super critical to buffer any supply shocks stemming from foreign producers or OPEC, both taking away or providing more, liquidity. As well, U.S. energy exports were growing prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, and there are approximately 6.7 million people employed in this sector. It's really important. Let's go to Biden. Biden is now working as part of a larger climate change task force with AOC and the Sunrise Movement. Now, this means there is a possibility as energy and environmental plans will shift towards stronger actions to prevent climate change. Now, higher regulatory costs for companies in the energy sector could result, and that would hurt them. Now, given the continued warming of the planet, many environmentalists are saying this is a great opportunity to shift energy production away from fossil fuels towards renewables. However, the high costs of G&D and the recommendations of the DNC Environmental Climate Crisis Council will likely cause lawmakers to pause and consider the impact on the U.S. government's finances. I mean, these are really expensive programs. In addition, for paying for these policies by raising taxes could carry the potential to slow the economy during a time of weakness. That'll be tough. For Biden's election hopes, environmental policies will be critical for generating Democratic voter momentum, as most young people feel like, he's pretty falling short of where he needs to earn their vote, according to The Verge. Trying to implement environmental policies for the cost of something $10 to $16 trillion recommended by the DNC Council may be politically unpopular or viewed as economically really irresponsible. An alternative view is put forward by Vox. Maybe in the post-COVID political economy, there is more appetite than ever for something big, a vision of a better post-virus economy and society. Such a vision is taking shape on the left. However, while this may be favorable for his left-leaning voters, this kind of policy would be, pretty negative for energy-producing states like Pennsylvania. Now, Fred Keller, as a representative from Pennsylvania, said that if Biden moved forward with this plan completely to eliminate fossil fuels, it would set my district and the rest of the energy-producing America back decades. That's according to The Hill. Now, it's important to note that Trump's policies have always been framed that the U.S. economy is held back by burdensome regulations on our energy industry. Now, his America First energy plan was first premised on the assumption that the American energy policy must balance environmental protection with economic growth to encourage innovation, discovery, and prosperity. That comes from the White House. For many of these issues, including energy and the environmental policy, both candidates are of the opinion that economic growth is driven by energy-focused industrial policy, and that's the way to go. But they obviously differ significantly on how to achieve it. Now, one of the major long-term questions over Trump's environmental and energy policies is while they may increase domestic energy output of America now, they are not built on sustainable approaches to energy production or focused on new technology for the future. As an example, right? Renewable energy consumption in the U.S. topped coal consumption in 2019. Now, that's the first time that's happened in over 130 years. Now, that indicates a significant shift away from coal production in the United States in general, right, according to The Hill. But alongside this development is really a question of better money spent on technology to store sunlight, and that creates a traditional energy policy question. Should more money be spent on fracking or rather on ARPA-E research to create cheap energy? An important factor to note is that the energy sector will play a vital part in getting locked down Americans back to work, and an energy shift is coming whether politicians really are ready or not. Okay, phew, that's a lot to cover, and we'll be covering more in the next few weeks. If you want to get more of these videos as soon as they're released, please click subscribe and sign up on the button below. If you want to learn more about the 2020 election and the policies, click on the video below, and I'll see you in the next one.